Let's try it! I think it's right there, man. You want to go first?
On this particular day, it would just be Jason and Chris and I, Riley, going for a little ride. And as you can see, the trails were really nice. This is not far from a friend's cottage, we know. And here is Chris on the 1150 GS. He decided to leave the HP2 at home. And this is the front wheel view on my F800 GS. And I also had a GoPro up on my helmet. And this was a trail we'd been on once before. And there was some pretty good stuff. I mean, here we see a typical section in the woods, and luckily for us, it hadn't been super mucky recently. There was some decent downhill sections. This is actually quite steep. The old GoPro not really showing it, but you can hear that I'm off the throttle and I'm kind of rolling down this hill, picking my way. Behind me, I think Chris was finding the 1150 GS a little more of a handful than his HP2. Usually Chris would be right on my heels, and here you can see he's lagging quite a ways farther back. Now this is what I would consider kind of the perfect trail for the big bikes. I mean, they're great on gravel roads and stuff like that, obviously, but this is the kind of trail that's great, I find, for these large displacement, kind of heavy bikes, in that it's not a single track. This is actually part of a local ATV trail network. So you've got a little bit of wiggle room. You don't have to be hyper accurate on where you're going, because it's not this tiny little single wheel track through the forest. And there you see the old GoPro lens getting smacked again. There's a nice one. And we frequently just buy the replacement lenses and screw them on after they get scratched. The branches usually don't do it, but once you pound it into the ground and slide along on a rock with a 200-pound body on top of it, that usually does the lens in. At this point, Chris was far enough behind I thought he might have fallen, but he was just going slow.
What happened? We already have footage? No? No, it's just a lot slower.
So after a brief pause, we decided to change the leader, and Jason was now going to be running up front. Now Jason had been making a lot of noises actually recently about getting rid of his F800. He's in the planning stages, he was in the planning stages when this video was shot, of getting ready to do a round the world trip, and he wanted a simpler, smaller, lighter carbureted bike. So this would be one of the last times we'd see him on the 800. Here's Chris doing another downhill. And it's kind of interesting, you know, one of the things that happens quite often when we post these videos is we get feedback from people who, for some reason, can't understand why we're using these bikes on these kinds of rides. And we get a lot of comments about, why don't you buy a 250? These bikes are too heavy, they're not really made for this. And the assumption from a lot of them seems to be that we're not having fun. I always kind of find it interesting when someone tells me, get another bike and you'd be having more fun. You have to realize that all of us have ridden those smaller bikes. You know, I've tried them all, and everything from the DR and the XR and a KLR and some really lightweight KTMs. Here's another nice little downhill. And the nature of the riding we do, with the big highway runs we have to do to get to the trails, the fact that the bike has to be street legal so we can jump from trail to trail, the fact that we carry a lot of gear in terms of the camera equipment and batteries, and I like to bring a very extensive toolkit and spare parts stuff because we are, you know, several hours from home, and it would kind of be a pain to be stranded out there for lack of a simple tool, and then have to, you know, get doubled on someone else's motorcycle, 45 minutes out of a trail, and then a 2-hour ride home, and then grab the car and the truck and the trailer or whatever and get back, and then somehow recover the bike, and all of a sudden your morning ride turns into a day-long adventure. So we do have big, heavy toolkits. We bring enough stuff to change tires. And for those of you who don't think we have fun riding these big bikes on the trails, all I can tell you is we do. And it's not that we haven't tried the small bikes. We just prefer this type of riding. Yes, we're going a lot slower here than if we were riding at 250, but that also means when we have the inevitable fall, we also fall down, going a lot slower, which my body is quite happy to trade off that speed when it's sliding down the trail. And I think it's also one of the reasons these bikes haven't really seen big damage in all the spills we have, because we're never going that fast. Now, Jason had never been down this way before. Chris and I had been down here a couple of weeks before. So at these junctions, he was looking back at us to see which way to go. And at the next junction, he showed us a perfect low-speed get-off.
Break time!
Now, if someone's just tossed their bike on the ground, usually we take that opportunity to stretch our legs, and sometimes the guy who's fallen off doesn't quite know if he's twisted something or whatever in the heat of the moment.
If you wanted to take a break, you just had to ask. You're good.
So which way?
I think it's that way.
That way.
That's the way you were going. You were leaning into it.
Yeah, it's just that I saw if you tacked and then I hesitated and
Yeah.
that's all I needed.
I'll take a break. So?
It's a little more work.
I hear a lot more.
Yeah. I whacked into I crunched a few rocks already.
Are you maxed out in the back?
The back is so soft. Sit on it.
Low rider.
I need to really invest in the taller shocks at some point. Huh?
Where's your knob on this thing? It's on this side?
Oh, it's all the way cranked. It's cranked up.
Max.
No, but it's what I find the hardest is the steering damper, the lack of damper.
Stamping, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you tried using the death grip?
I use the death grip with my knees.
Yeah.
And I mean, having a almost bald tire doesn't help.
There's less mud buildup though.
Yeah.
It can't hold it.
There is that.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to take some air out, I think.
Yeah, why don't you air down a bit?
Because if you have one, I don't have anything with me.
I got a gauge.
And the other thing is that everything's in the wrong spot. My brake lever's in the wrong spot. My shifter's in the wrong spot. Like, I'm not used to anything. So, I was going down one of those hills and I was like, because I couldn't find my brake.
That can be a bit stressful. Well, wait. What we're doing now today is pointless too. We're just...
But at least we're going somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
But at least here, at some point, we have to get home.
So, 25 in the back and 26 in front?
No. 20 in the back, maybe 20 in the front. I want some good rim bending footage for my montage.
I love how you just take pleasure in other people's pain.
I take pleasure in my own pain. That's how twisted I'm getting in my old age. I just want to feel something. All right, senor, hit it.
Well, after our brief rest, we decided to get rolling again. Jason would still be in the lead, then Chris, and I was bringing up the rear. I stalled it, and with my high seat, I'm on my tippy toes.
Good work.
Which meant I lost my footing there, and over she went.
Good work, Riley.
Did my little reverse bike picking up technique, which sadly I've gotten quite good at over the years. Meanwhile, up ahead, this trail kind of turned from a gravel road into a nice forest trail. It's always a pain when you got to reach over to flip out the side stand.
Get a little higher.
It's also kind of interesting that you get a song stuck in your head on one of these rides, and the next thing you know, for the whole ride, you're kind of humming it. And yeah, Chris and I had been down here, as I mentioned, a little earlier in the month, and it was a really nice trail network. And now, I guess the boys didn't figure anyone would have fallen down so far, so they weren't exactly looking in their mirrors to see if everyone was back there. So I was playing a bit of catch up. So I got on the throttle a little harder. And then we started these big, long downhills. Now this, once again, doesn't look very steep, but yeah, there were these really great long downhills. I was still on the kind of flat portion leading up to it. Here you can see Jason kicking up some dust because he got a little too hard on the rear brake. Meanwhile, I was closing the gap, and it's just, you know, it really is a shame with these GoPro cameras. They're so fantastic. But the nature of these super wide angle lenses is you just get no feel for how steep, you know, uphills and downhills are. And you can see I'm trying to avoid the big rocks. I mean, the front rims on these 800s are pretty soft. So one good hit on a big rock, especially if you've aired down the tire, and you can put a pretty good ding in it. And amazingly enough, 3 seasons of using this rim that a lot of people have wrecked in one day, and mine is still pretty much round. And up ahead, that downhill just kept going down and down and down. Now here you see Jason going over this big rock, and then Chris. And one of the things you find out pretty quick when you're doing this is those big flat rocks are just amazing. It's like driving on asphalt, and if you do gain a little extra speed on one of these downhills, when you get to one of these big flat rocks, it's a great spot where you can actually get pretty heavy on the brakes, even the front brake, and scrub off some speed.
We went straight last time. I think that, yeah, we didn't do that. That's gonna go into a shit show.
Sometimes you can just pretty much tell that a trail isn't worth checking out. When you see it heading off into the swamp like that, you realize, yeah, on a snowmobile in the winter when it's frozen, it's probably passable, but on a 500-pound bike, it's not really even worth going down there and getting stuck. And then we started this uphill, and I've actually shortened this up in editing, but this uphill just went on and on and on and on. Now you can hear this is the actual sound from the 1150GS, and you can hear that this thing is just chugging up this hill here, low RPM. You know, it doesn't spin the wheel so easily as the 800 does. The 800, you get a little too hard on the gas and that rear wheel will break loose and then just spin, and then you're stuck.
Woo! Good workout.
You're not gonna believe this, but I think a lot of this stuff is actually easier on this because the gearing with that final drive is so low. I just with the lowered final drive,
Yeah.
I don't even have, I barely have to touch the throttle, and I just cruise.
Well, this has also a heavy flywheel compared to the HP2 has no flywheel.
Like going up that was a breeze. I just hold the throttle barely open and it just tractors up the whole thing. It was unreal.
There you go.
Well, I dropped it.
Let's get one of these.
I dropped it right where you did.
Oh yeah?
Oh, in the mud.
No, when you turned the corner and you fell. So you guys went ahead. I started to turn.
It was loose.
Yeah. So we did this trail net last week,
Yeah, this is exactly what
and it led to a whole bunch of other stuff. We never, and there was a couple of great roads too, like narrow roads, really hilly, beautiful.
So where do you?
Because this is like 5 minutes from Tim's cottage. Our friend Tim, well, you weren't there, I guess. So we trailered up last week and we just parked at his cottage.
Is this before or after the hydro line section that we did? Can't remember.
I don't know, but we should definitely find that hydro
Yeah,
line.
because that was awesome.
Yeah, that was great. We're rolling.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna follow you, Chris.
Now I relocated one of the cameras onto the left side of the 1150GS facing backwards. You can see that suspension working. And lo and behold, the hydro line that we wanted to ride was only a couple of minutes up the trail. And at least in our neck of the woods, hydro lines are just a source of a lot of prime riding. And the hydro lines, the trails always look like this. I don't know what it is, it's just the nature of where they put hydro lines, but they always seem to look like this. And the only problem with the hydro lines is, of course, they don't care about swamps and lakes, so whenever there is a big swampy area, the trail diverts out into the woods. And sometimes it'll just pop out into the woods and pop you back onto the hydro line in a matter of, a couple of 100 meters. And other times, it'll be for a long time. And here this trail was pretty gnarly. You're on board with Chris here on the 1150GS. You can really see that rear wheel working. Hear the gear whine from the final drive. And as is the usual way it works out, if you do a really, really, really long uphill, at some point you're going to do a really, really long downhill. The half burned out knobby was spinning pretty good in the mud.
Hold on, where's Jason? Yeah, let's move that thing. I think it's gonna be a shitty shot anyways.
So we decided to relocate the GoPro. Actually, it wasn't a shitty shot, it was a pretty good shot, but we didn't know it at the time.
You got nothing?
Not really.
So we relocated the GoPro to give us a nice shot of Jason. And off we went. So we were still on this bypass that was skirting some swampy areas on our hydroline trail. You can see on the right there's some pretty swampy stuff. And then the trail popped us back out into the sunshine on the hydro line. And then as you can see up ahead, lots of rocks.
Uh-oh. Oh.
And as I'd mentioned earlier, it hadn't rained in quite a while, so it was a bit dry. And this would be the kind of trail that, you know, after 2 or 3 days of rain, we would definitely not be going through here. I noticed that compared to the morning, now Chris was making a little bit better pace on the 1150GS. I think he was getting used to it.
Fuck, man. Uh-oh. Oh. Got a little off course there.
And then up ahead, it looked like the trail was leading us back into the forest. Now, you don't really realize how much your upper body's moving around, I guess, until you watch a little video clip like this, where you really get a sense of how much Jason is being bounced around on this relatively flat trail. It's just rocky.
Where's Jason? Let's wait for Jason.
I gave Jason the international sign to pass me. And now at this point, Chris is up ahead somewhere, Jason's the man in the middle, and I'm bringing up the rear.
This is Rocky, boys. Rocky Raccoon went up to his room.
So as you can see, Chris had kind of picked up the pace a little on the 1150. But we eventually caught up to him at one of these little snowmobiling shacks that spaced around the trail network.
Thing of beauty?
Definitely.
You see that bridge there? That's the kind of stuff that the ATV clubs and the snowmobiling clubs actually install. So we all are members of a couple of different groups that some of the funds goes towards supporting these trail networks. So I would certainly recommend that if you want to use the trails, be part of some group where there's at least some money flowing to keep them open. And these same groups are also the guys that lobby for us so that we can have access to this land. Because of course we're always running up against other users and hikers and horseback people, and you know, everybody would like to have the forest to themselves, and a lot of these groups, the Ontario Federation of Trail Riders, the FQMHR, which is the Quebec Federation of Off-Road Motorcyclists, they're actually working pretty hard to give us access to off-road riding. Chris thought he might have a flat since he hit a few big rocks.
Right, no flat. No, I heard a really, really loud bang. We went this way.
That way.
Do you want to try that way?
Should we just do a little foot recce for 2 seconds?
See if that water goes forever or only 5 feet.
Now this is our third summer of doing this, and we are getting a little wiser. There was a time I guess we would have just plunged head first into this thing, and then you know, had to turn around 3 bikes.
The back wheel kind of landed in it.
Yeah. It looked like a nightmare.
Well, there's a lot of aquatic life in here.
Well, that's always good.
A lot of frogs.
Give us a good walk report.
And I gotta say, once we were past that initial water, it didn't look too bad. There was some more water up ahead, but it wasn't too grooved out, so it looks like it was going to be pretty easy to stay to the sides of these puddles and not get too wet.
You like getting your feet wet, eh?
No, they'll stay dry.
So, what does it look like?
Well, it looks like okay beyond this, but it's definitely not high traffic because there's no tire tracks.
Ah, yes. The sound of an interesting video in the makes.
All right, I leave it up to you, fine sir.
Skanky water,
Right?
skanky water and no tire tracks.
I'm not going to go through the skanky water.
There's a bypass, and then you can scooch the edge. It's solid.
What do you think? Down there, do you think it... What?
So discretion being the better part of valor, we decided to head in. And of course, courtesy dictates that if you were the person who's decided that this trail is a good idea, normally you would lead. But in this case, Chris decided he wanted to go first, and I was quite happy to bring up the rear and see what was going to happen to the guys in front of me and make my decisions accordingly. Now you can kind of get yourself in trouble driving through these big puddles. If the edges of them are quite steep, you try to ride along the edge, the bike can slide in and you can fall down.
I love to go swimming with bow-legged women and swim between their knees. Whoa! Oh!
And I don't know why that song was in my head. And we got to another junction. And we can see here Chris trying to make a decision. And in the end, he went with turning right. And this turned into another nice trail, which I don't think we'd ever been down before. This was the first time we'd been on this. It was just turning out to one of those days where we just seemed to keep lucking out. Each trail, instead of just being a dead end or coming to a gate or a no trespassing sign, was just linking up really nicely, and we were actually covering a lot of ground. But sadly, it didn't last forever, and the trail dumped us out on a gravel road. And then we came upon another couple of interesting looking trails.
We were here before. What? We were here before.
What, were we?
Yeah,
Did we go down here?
we went through there, but I think at one point we went down there. I think it was all right. I think we had to turn around and come back, maybe.
Oh, that was where we ended up at the lake thing.
Yeah, I see. If we go, hold on, I got the track. Yeah.
That's where we took our break in the bug zone.
Yeah, we went down there, and then we continued down this way. We did another right, which was a dead end. It looks like there's an interesting, it looks like there's an interesting trail up here.
And then on the left, there looked like a real interesting trail. It was quite steep from what we could tell. Chris behind me saw me point, so he decided to forge ahead. And surprise, surprise, it was rocky. And as you can see by all the branches hitting Jason, it didn't look like a lot of people had been through here, especially not on motorcycles. The ATV guys tend to sit quite a bit lower than a 6'2" guy standing on a big, tall BMW. But once again, this was looking like a pretty nice trail. Of course, it started to get grassy, and over the years we've kind of learned that when the trail starts to really get overgrown with grass and there hasn't been enough wheel traffic to kind of keep the grass at bay, it's usually not a good sign. So the trail kind of alternated between these big rocky sections, which I think were kept clean by erosion, and these grassy sections where it didn't look like anybody had used the trail in quite a long time. And then for a section, the trail actually got smooth enough that we could all sit down, which is kind of nice if you've been standing on the pegs for the better part of a few hours. It's nice to take a load off and give your arms a rest. And of course, one of the fun things about the grass like this is it's pretty hard to see sometimes if there's a big rock hidden in it. So it's not a bad idea to moderate your speed a little.
Stalled. I let go of the gas and she stalled in the mud.
That's happened to me a few times when it's really slippery. You let go of the gas and there isn't quite enough traction to keep the rear wheel going, so the motor just stalls. Then the trail seemed to improve a bit, so we started thinking maybe this trail was actually going to go somewhere, and then it dumped us out in this little opening in the forest, which was all grass. So while Chris was kind of trying to figure out where the trail actually went, Jason and I were catching up to him. Now, normally when you see something like this, it's a pretty safe bet that there's not going to be a happy ending, especially if you're looking at the GPS and it's not telling you that you've only got to go 200 meters to get to a road. I mean, the GPS was showing us there was quite a distance ahead of us until we actually got to any sort of real gravel road. And then Chris decided to dump it. Jason decided to dump it. So I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll just stop. The nice thing with the 1150 is with those cylinders sticking out the side, it doesn't fall over that far, so it's actually relatively easy to pick up.
You're not making me optimistic about me making it through here.
Well, this is a fun trail. I think it's getting a little bit trickier, but
It's fine there.
well, let's make a command decision because this looks bad. Like,
it's getting a little bad.
yeah.
I'm not going to say it's not doable yet. Should we give it?
Want to swim?
Huh?
Want to take a swim?
Is that a lake?
Oh, looks like it.
If only we had real drinks, we could make this decision.
Well, I would say let's walk to the top of that little crest, and if it continues like it was, it's fine. If it gets really nasty, then
We're sending in our top man.
with the poorest decision-making abilities.
Exactly. He's also the guy who's going to go first.
No, the KLR, much tougher to get up than the 800.
Really?
Not just a little bit, a lot.
How come?
No idea. It's just
There you
maybe the
go.
weight. Oh.
So while Chris walked up the hill to do his reconnaissance, Jason and I stayed back and
How's your
debated
suspension
the
with that
various
hybrid
merits
system
of
you've got on
different
there?
motorcycles and suspension. Up ahead, Chris came to some kind of jury-rigged bridges and stuff, so someone had actually gone through quite a bit of effort to make this part of the trail passable, which was kind of odd because there didn't seem to be any traffic. Chris kept going, so Jason and I decided to do a little maintenance.
You
There
clean
we
that
go.
Right off. Where is Chris?
Now you can imagine how good this trail would be if it had been raining for a few days.
Seen a tree.
Never crashed at over 100 kilometers an hour.
There you go.
Chris finally arrived to make his report.
So?
Well, I'm gonna stir the pot a little bit. I'm confident that we can do it. It's
That's 2 of the warning signs.
really. I thoroughly believe, if you guys can make it up that hill, that we can do it.
Oh, okay. But we don't, yeah, okay. Because we can certainly make it down that hill.
Yes. At the top of that hill
Yeah.
is a rutted out railroad track bridge. Ooh. And some other mysterious like railroad ties that have been thrown around to make a bit of a bridge, but nothing soppy wet, so you're not going to be digging into giant holes. It's just this hill that will be a little bit of a challenge to get up, I think, and then after that it's bumpy. Go slow and it'll be fine. That's my answer.
All right.
Well, let's see you go up first.
I don't know why we send him, because we don't trust his answers.
I suggest you want footage from this.
Oh yeah. Let me get the... Hold on, Chris, we're going to move the B cam.
Do you want from both angles? Going up, going down? I can walk up first.
I'm going to put this on your bike near the back.
What did you call it? The P cam?
B. Hold on a sec.
Now you see me pressing the remote on my wrist. I'm actually controlling all 3 GoPros from that one remote, which is kind of convenient, so I can start and stop them all. We relocated the camera to the right side of Jason's bike, and then we went and positioned ourselves along the hill somewhere because we figured we'd have to give Chris a hand. And once again, this is actually a steep, greasy hill. As you can see, Chris is having a little trouble getting it going. It's funny, on camera, on that other angle, it almost looks like he's going downhill, but it is an uphill. Here you can see it almost looks like a downhill from his helmet cam. Got a little smoke. And this is where it helps to be 6'4". If you're gonna paddle a GS up a hill.
Okay, give her.
And of course, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking this is gonna be really fun to do on the 800 with the high seat where I'm on my tippy toes.
You want to move that branch? Because I think that's the easiest way to go.
Dude, this is a nightmare!
No, it gets easy, I'm telling you.
Chris got to the first makeshift bridge and decided not to ride on the bridge, but ride into this crack. The GS didn't have quite enough ground clearance, so it was hung up. So he just decided to spin his way through. When in doubt, give her. And Jason and I could hear what was going on. I gave him the sign that I thought we'd be turning around, and decided to head up, see if Chris needed a hand.
This strange common sense I'm developing.
Oh, I thought it was called experience.
Yes.
Ooh, this is nice.
Meanwhile, up ahead, Chris had finally given up on the idea of ramming his motorcycle through this bridge.
Oh, he's bottomed out.
You stuck, Bill.
I don't have any ground clearance. Yeah, I should have gone over it, not... Just pull back.
So we gave him a hand, pulled him back.
Not enough clearance there, Jacques.
You can see it was actually quite a deep little trench.
Now you do.
Alright.
Maybe.
After this, it gets easier.
Want to take that one out too?
And with a little help from his friends and a total disregard for the poor dry clutch on the GS, Chris made it out of the first obstacle. This time he decided to drive on the planks, which was probably a pretty good idea.
You know it's going to go downhill to that lake. It's going to go downhill to the lake.
Bad idea.
And you know what's on the end of a lake? A swamp.
Nothing.
Chris was still convinced that this was going to lead him to a sunny terrace with large portions of cheap food being served by cheery wait staff in skimpy outfits. So he continued.
Uh-oh. He's coming back. Hey, look, there's a bypass.
The worst of it.
You do know where this is going to end, right?
It's turning around.
At the bottom of where the swamp is the end of the lake.
You think so?
Yeah. Guaranteed.
All right, I'll turn around.
Yeah, because you can see the lake is there.
You were able to do it. I'm starting to see how you work.
Antagonize.
Chris, I bet you can't do it.
Well, it gets easy after that.
This looks like the kind of trail like some guy has it to get to his hunting camp twice a year. There doesn't seem to be a lot of traffic.
There's no traffic.
Well, do you want to go a little farther and then see if it's worth
Go
it?
down to till the next difficult spot and see if it ends.
It is motocross country.
Yeah, there was a bike that went through here because the tire,
Someone had a little motor.
the ties had tire tracks between them. But really, it turns into a nice trail up there.
All right. I don't know. It's up to you, Bill. Okay.
Well, I'll go forward and see if it ends.
Okay.
Because
We're here for this.
Yeah, so go forward, see if it ends. If it ends, we'll honk your horn, do something.
I'll turn around.
La, la, la. Tell me a story.
So, in Thailand,
Yeah.
you gotta be careful whose ass you grab.
While Jason regaled me with stories of the Far East, Chris plunged ahead on this trail, which at some point was pretty hard to figure out where it was going.
Oh yeah, it's just a friggin'...
Fuck this.
Oh. He's going farther away.
Now this trail was being pretty coy. Every now and then it would just seem to disappear and then reappear, and you could actually see two wheel tracks from an ATV. So I think it kept luring Chris farther and farther.
The odds of this turning into one of those nice trails? Slim. Anyway, if we go farther down that gravel road, it looked like there was a break off to the right that was at least a good couple of clicks of good gravel road.
Okay.
So if we ever get out of here, we could try that.
And then the trail really turned sloppy, rocky. Overgrown with ferns.
Imagine this, like this, it hasn't rained.
Yeah.
And this is a swamp on the top of a hill. Oh, man.
Finally, Chris had to admit that this was probably not going to work out, and he turned around, and now all he had to do was climb the hill that he'd been descending for a lot of this last little bit of trail.
You can take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Get the Johnny Paycheck tune off iTunes.
And yeah, Chris was giving the old 1150 a pretty good workout.
The karaoke, and the first clip was this guy. You can take this job and shove it, I ain't working here no more. Everybody,
Meanwhile, Chris's oil light had come on, plus he was starting to hear a strange kind of banging noise when he hit bumps. So he was taking a look to see if there was oil spilling out of the bottom of the engine. And when all was good, off he went.
oh, starting it. That's not a good sign. No, he's spinning it again. Because one thing I've learned now from changing those wheel bearings as many times as I have is that just driving into a fucking 4-foot hole for an hour for no reason is a fucking pain in the ass. It costs you a chain and sprockets.
We could hear Chris getting closer, so we knew that we would not be sitting on that lakeside terrace enjoying those ice-cold beverages at the end of this trail. And instead, we were going to have to turn tail and head back the way we'd come.
Yeah, because he's...
I think I broke my skid plate. No, I'm serious.
Are you saying that in a negative way?
In a negative way, like my oil light's on.
There's no oil coming out. But it is loose now.
Oh yeah, those are shit.
Or maybe I just ripped the oil sensor off.
Oh, you sheared the mount. The rubber mounts are sheared. Nothing serious.
Yeah, but how come my oil light's on so hard then?
No, there's no oil coming out. You want to just rip this off?
Yeah, I guess so. Hold on.
No, just put your foot on there and push.
Well, then I'll never get back on again.
Well, no, the mounts are history.
No, the mounts are going in the casing.
But you have to pull those out. They're rubber. They're sheared.
You know, they're screwed in. I have replacements at home.
You want to just take a wrench then?
Yeah, if you have one, because I don't bring any
Just leave
tools.
it on. It's still protecting it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Let's leave it till we get on.
Yeah, so you don't want to go that way.
Hold on. Let's turn on the understatement cam.
Well, no, it was all right until I hit the lake and had to turn around.
Luckily, your center stand is okay.
There you go. Any chance of bolting it with a tie wrap?
Zip tie. Yeah, I got some of those.
Oh, we can take this
Chris,
screw out.
we can put a
and,
big tie wrap right through here. I got some of those 200-pound test jobbies. Oh, that's fucking hot, that cross member. Might melt it. Anyways, let's get to civilization. We can always put it here.
Yeah. Okay. Don't you love these trophy bikes?
Fucking poser special.
Sure there's no oil? Maybe it's just too hot.
Is there any oil in it?
Yeah, I put more in last night. I checked it.
I mean, take a look at the...
I know.
Is that a little...
I know Jason's not worried. And I'm not worried.
I'm not worried either. It goes off intermittently.
Oh, that's good then. I think if it's really bad, there's a buzzer. Good? Is it out?
I think I ripped the sensor off, maybe going through that thing. I think it's down there because the oil light's on all the time. Oh, except when I rev it. All right.
The reconnaissance elements have come back with a poor report. The only good news is all three of us aren't stuck down there.
Well, there wasn't much we could do about Chris's bike here in the woods, so the decision was made we would get out onto the road and then strap down the skid plate. I mean, nothing was cracked, no oil was leaking, and there was plenty of oil in the bike. So I think the bike might have just been a little unhappy with all that slow speed, high revving action Chris had just recently put it through. I mean, these 1150 GS motors seem to be incredibly tolerant of being abused. And as Chris mentioned earlier, there was one set of tire tracks. There was what appeared to be a very narrow motocross tire. So somebody on a little bike had actually made it through here.
Well, I guess I should since I'm closest to the door.
return whence it came, huh?
Get it all over the long place. I can turn over there.
I think if we just
Push it.
right straight back to where Riley is and then turn it. All right, so I've proven that I'm incapable of making decisions.
Okay. God damn, this thing's heavy. Alright, I think this is it. Alright, let me get under power here. Fucking tall seat.
And of course, etiquette demands that if someone has helped you manhandle your bike around, you should at least come back and give them the same help. Now, this is the kind of thing I guess you could do it by yourself, but it would be a lot of work.
Torch it up.
Sometimes just a little branch can really jam up the situation, and when that was tossed out of the way, a little tug on the crash bars, and Jason was on his way.
Got some good smoke shows of you on rocks. It was actually blue smoke.
Oh, really? That was my clutch.
Tire. No, the tire burning.
Oh. I thought that was the clutch because I smelled burnt clutch.
I think he's golden. Watch your skid plate.
Yeah, if I keep the RPMs up, the oil light goes off completely. So it must just be too hot.
Now, this is definitely one of those situations where if your primary concern with your motorcycle is how good it looks and what the resale value is going to be, at this point on a ride like this, you're probably not having a lot of fun. But if you bought the bike to take it out and use it, and I'm not talking about destroying it or breaking it, actually all of these bikes, years after this video was shot, are still running. So you can, give these bikes quite a bit of use, hard use, and if you take care of them, they keep running. I mean, Chris sold this bike 2 years later, and it was in actually quite nice shape when we got it all cleaned up. Jason eventually sold his 800 to a friend who was quite happy with it, and as of October 2014, I'm still riding the F800GS I had this day in the woods, and it's running fine. The ride out ended up being pretty uneventful. There was just that one last steep downhill. It always seems, for some reason, that when we leave these trail networks, there's always this steep rocky downhill that then dumps you out on a road. So you've got to be a little careful not to shoot out back into the public domain at speed. Once we got back out onto the dirt road, Chris was able to get a little air flowing through the oil cooler and over the cooling fins of the cylinders on the 1150, and his oil light stopped flickering, and basically all seemed well with the world. Now, the way it works in our little group, and I'm sure it's the same for most, is whoever is the lead bike has the responsibility to try and find some interesting places for everyone to ride. And on this day, the Cosmos did abide, and we set off on this interesting looking little trail. I'm not going to show too much footage of this trail. It was well maintained by some ATV group, and there wasn't a lot of variety to it. There was some decent little uphill and downhill sections. But eventually, as is the way of these trails, it had that last big, steep, gravelly hill that dumped us back onto the road. Up ahead, I'd already found another entrance to what looked like an interesting trail. You notice here, even though they're on the trail now, everyone's going a little slower and sitting down. That's usually a sign that people are starting to get a little tired. There were a few sections that were a bit rutted out. You wouldn't want to get your front wheel stuck into that rut at speed, but it was pretty easy to stay out of trouble and ride the center crest. Then we came to another junction, and the trail to the left definitely looked a lot more interesting than continuing down the gravel road. And you can see here on the right, the ditches have been dug out. This is a trail that somebody has actually made. And I think the ATV snowmobile groups raise quite a bit of money. And you'll actually come across an excavator sometimes in the woods making these trails. Now, the trail itself was pretty recently upgraded from what we could tell from the freshly dug ditches. And the downside of that is there hasn't been a lot of chance for erosion to wash away the dirt and leave you those rocky sections and create some washouts and maybe wash away a culvert or two. So, sadly, it's not super exciting. He saw me pass the hiker there, and we always try to really slow down to a crawl when we pass other trail users, because the last thing you need is that guy standing up at the next municipal meeting complaining about how he was almost run down by some maniacs on motorcycles. And of course, all trails must end, and we ended up back on a different gravel road. Chris's bike at this point seemed to have healed itself fully, and as you can see by looking at his dash, there's no red light. And as usual, when you've been in the woods and the tighter stuff, it is kind of nice to get out on a deserted road, kick it up a gear, stand up on the pegs, and get a little breeze going. And there you just saw the patented head turn. It's always kind of funny if you're following the lead rider and you can just tell, you know, everybody's got their head on ball bearings and they're trying to find that interesting trail left or right. And off this road there was actually quite a few, but we decided to stay on the main artery here and see where it led us. Then the trail started to close in a bit and get a little rougher, so I dropped the speed and actually was quite happy to just cruise and sit down and relax. And I think this video today is kind of proof positive of what you can do with these bikes. You know, we didn't show any footage of it, but I mean, there was probably an hour and 20 minutes or so of highway riding to get to the start point of this ride, which means there's going to be an hour and 20 minutes of riding to get home. And yes, the bikes are less than ideal when you get into that crazy tight stuff. But on something like this, we're going a lot slower, obviously, than someone on a perfectly suspended 250 would. But there's just something about riding a big bike through these kind of things that, you know, we find appealing. And I don't know what it is. If it's some sort of low-grade masochism, or if it's just that... you know, there's something kind of luxurious in a way about riding a big bike with lots of power on the highway and on the twisty two lanes and on the gravel. And then even on something like this, yes, you're not flying down this trail in fourth gear, but that's not really our style. And I would actually kind of find it a little too risky, given I don't know what's around the next corner and whatever, to be going too much faster than we do go on the good stretches of these trails. Eventually this trail got a little mucky and it was really greasy in that hole, and then it dawned on me we'd never stopped to fix Chris's skid plate, so I pulled over and Jason, who was following me, took a different line and down she went. Now sadly the GoPro wasn't in its waterproof case. We like to use the open back because we get better audio. And the camera worked for about another week or so, and then eventually
How are you, sir?
succumbed to its injuries, which was kind of our fault, but that's the only time we've ever lost a GoPro.
Did the camera get submerged?
Still rolling. You want to do your skid plate?
Sure.
Yeah, well, I thought there's a little flat spot up here. We could work on it.
The oil light's back to normal now. I think it was just heat.
Hot.
Yeah, I should start running synthetic.
It takes a licking. Yeah, that was slippery.
I think I would have bailed here too, because you couldn't see it coming and I was going at a bit of a clip.
What seems to be the problem, Chris? Is it loose?
You think?
Yeah. I guess the rattling is bothering you?
Nope.
At one point we were just bombing down here and I said, oh yeah, I thought at one point we were going to stop and fix Chris's skid plate. Maybe we should.
Most of the noise that you hear is actually
What if we just wrapped a zip tie right around? We could do that, you know. Chris, forget it. Let's just put a zip tie right underneath the skid plate.
hold it?
Yeah. And we'll just do that. It'll be easier.
Okay.
So put it on the side stand. We'll see if we can put two of them together. Fuck, there are a lot of deer flyage.
Got some smoking from something.
Well, you had it laying on its side.
Yeah.
Well, with Chris's bike, I hesitate to use the term repaired, but at least stabilized. We continued down the trail. I was out in front. I'd moved the GoPro to the crash bar on the left side. Plus, I still had the helmet cam that you see here. And following me was Chris. And in this case, Jason was going to bring up the rear. One of the things we've been pretty poor about doing in our little club is keeping track of all these trails. A lot of the times we might still have the tracks from the previous year or so sitting on our GPSs, but we really haven't been very systematic in kind of keeping track of and rating the trails and organizing them in any meaningful way. We tend to kind of just stumble around out there. Here you see a pretty decent little uphill section. So we frequently get asked by people, "Oh, that trail looked great. Can you send me the GPS track for it or the waypoints?" And a lot of the time, we don't have it anymore. And especially because we're so slow in posting these videos, some of these videos go up a year or two after the actual ride. Of course, we don't remember exactly where it is. Here's a pretty decent little downhill section. I'm always amazed when we get out on these trail networks. Obviously, someone spends a great deal of time maintaining these, keeping the signage. There you saw Chris almost lose it. He's kind of skidding down this downhill section. But a lot of effort goes in. You can see there was an ATV ahead of us who was power sliding around some of these corners because you can see the disturbed earth. But we just so rarely encounter people on motorized vehicles on these trails. Here was a pretty interesting climb, and I'd decided to stick to the right-hand side. You might have noticed that this video is running a little longer than most of our videos, considering this was just a Sunday morning ride. But I think it gives you a better feel for what it's actually like to go on one of these rides.
I forgot how fucking awesome this trail was. It's really, really good.
We got to do the same route except going in.
Yeah, we got to do it backwards. Because some of those downhills that we've done have been pretty gnarly. They're going to be fun going the other way.
Like this last one?
Yeah.
I think if we stay to the right, it'd be okay. Uh-oh.
I think he's all right.
He's taking a bit of time.
Here's listening for a bike.
Quiet.
The death sound.
I hear him.
He's spinning or actually moving?
Well, let's give it a minute, and then we'll go back.
I got to get the risers on this. I have a pair of rock risers.
I do.
I have some. I have rock risers. It's just that last time I went in to put them on, and I realized I had to move the cables, and I just said fuck it. So I'm gonna take I'll take the handlebar off completely. I'll spray it black again, or silver or something. Maybe I'll do it silver, and then put the rock risers on.
Do whatever paint you have.
Yeah, I have.
Where the fuck is he?
Silver caliper paint. And I'll
That's not good.
Fix my heated grip too.
Oh, I hear him. Yeah, he's coming.
A honk signal if you're in trouble.
This is where the comms would be great, eh?
Yeah.
I'm okay.
You hear him?
Yep. Okay, we'll be out of here in about a kilometer. Okay. There's a turn to the right we did, which was a dead end.
Let's go grab some food.
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock. We got
Yeah,
time.
let's go eat.
Okay. Well, when we hit the road, I'll follow you. You're always good at finding chow. All good?
So you heard me say there that it was 11 o'clock, which means we've probably been on this ride for about 4 hours or so. And at this point, we would be quite happy to find ourselves a nice little spot to have a snack and a cold beer. But this trail wasn't done with us yet. There was still a couple of interesting climbs. At this point, my helmet cam died, so all we had was the cam on the crash bar and Chris's helmet cam. And then we started the descent. And this was a little muckier for some reason. I don't know if there'd just been some localized rain, but all of a sudden we were dealing with a little more mud than we dealt with for the first part of the day. And after this, not much happened. We hit the main road and we headed for lunch. So once again, if you've got any questions about the bikes, the cameras, anything you see in our videos, don't hesitate to drop us a line. You can drop us a line here on YouTube, head over to our Facebook, just look for Awesome Players on Facebook, or drop us an email at info@apormc.com. And for those of you who sat through the whole thing, thanks for watching, and so ends another adventure of the Awesome Players Off-Road Motorcycle Club.
Oh.